What's up, everyone? This is your host, Jose Marquez, and I want to welcome you to the Sunday BYOB podcast on YouTube. BYOB means Bring Your Own Bible, and our goal is to make it come alive for you. We invite a wide range of guests to share their stories of triumph, joy, victory, and sorrow, and each episode is designed to talk about real issues with real people about a real God. We hope that you are curious, because if you are, you have tuned into the right place. Let's go.
What's up, everybody? It is not Jose Marquez. It is his better half.
Hey.
How are you guys doing?
Good, good.
Welcome to the Sunday BYOB podcast.
I'm excited that you're hosting.
Yes, my name is Anna, if you don't know, and I am Jose Marquez's wife. And we have Melvin, and I'd like you to do the honors of introducing Melvin.
Yes. I've known Melvin we was just discussing it, about 8 years. Shared different experiences, shared some ups, shared some downs. So it's been a very real relationship, I would say, which is always good. We've been able to be vulnerable with one another, share things with one another.
For sure.
So that's been good. But let them know who you are.
Yeah, guys. First of all, thank you for having me. Appreciate you guys reaching out. Just so we can connect here in a very real sense. But yeah, 8 years, bro. We've known each other, man.
Crazy,
dude. And just with Phil, when I answered that question, we both just paused and we were like, well, that's not a lie. We have known each other for 8 years.
It's crazy the way time just kind of flies, and
yeah, man.
It's crazy. It's insane.
Yeah, dude. But hey, I met Marquez at church, and then it was one of those relationships where you just kind of you feel the other person's realness and you just connect.
Same.
From there.
Same.
You just
I felt
connect.
your realness. We connected. That's how it was.
That's what happened?
That's what happened. Oh, we have the both of you guys on this episode because we're going to be discussing the Enneagram Type 7. And both of you guys are Enneagram Type 7.
It's going to be fun.
And if you don't know what an Enneagram is, please go back to our other episodes. We have a brief summary of what the Enneagram is. And make sure that you subscribe to Sunday BYOB podcast so you can be more informed. So
She does that better than me. I'll be forgetting.
About to lose your job.
But before I give you a brief summary or give the audience a brief summary of what the Enneagram Type 7 is, I just wanted to have like a little disclaimer that the Enneagram is a tool, and it's a liberating tool, and it's sometimes a painful tool, but it is just that, a tool. I do believe that we're not replacing the gospel. That, it doesn't replace what Jesus did on the cross, his finished work. And at the end of the day, the Enneagram is just a tool, but the real transformation is in the gospel. Amen. So I just wanted to add that in there. So I want to read you guys a summary of what a Type 7 is, and it's coming from a book called Becoming Us, and it's by Jeff and Beth McCord. If you don't have it, you should go get it.
We'll put a little link in the bottom of the... So you can buy that on Amazon, nice and cheap and good.
Yeah, Amazon is my favorite bookstore. And it says, you are a joyful, enthusiastic, and social person who radiates optimism wherever you go. As a lover of variety, you live life big. While you bring happiness and positive outlook, internally, you are always longing for more and fearful of missing out. To you, life is like cotton candy, tasting super sweet but disappearing quickly, leaving you constantly wanting another bite. Life can be painful and hard, and it's in those places that you can experience a deep internal struggle as you attempt to avoid pain at all costs. When life gets complicated, sad, or boring, you quickly escape to things that bring you pleasure, allowing you to avoid the difficult feelings you fear. Putting painful things out of your awareness or reframing suffering into something positive without truly dealing with it will continue to show up in counterproductive ways throughout your life. However, when your heart aligns with the gospel, you become more grounded in the present moment, trusting that God will fulfill your internal longings. I know it's long, But I like it because it just encapsulates everything from the good, the bad, the longing, the fears, the desires.
I was just kind of listening to you, just going check.
It's crazy because what I'm picturing when she was sharing some of those things, like flashes of each incident, flashes of when I tried to cover pain with pleasure, flashes of wanting more, flashes of fear of missing out. It's crazy.
And so I wanted to first ask you guys, what was your first impression of the Enneagram?
It was just scary, just how accurate it was. And I love the little preface you gave in the beginning, how this is, a tool.
Yeah.
Because the other part of my first impression was, okay, that's just how I am. That, and
it is what it is.
And it was just scary just to imagine someone just kind of reading you what your life is.
Yeah.
And like who
For me,
are.
it was like someone put a mirror up to like my face, and I was like, oh, that's what I look like in real life.
Yeah.
Not what this exterior shell is, but this is what I really look like. Like this is what God sees.
Yeah. For me, it was really, really scary, right? Because I believe it was 2016 when I began this inner journey. Again, I didn't know the Enneagram. I didn't know any of the stuff that we've been sharing in this series. But Holy Spirit was showing me step by step things that needed to change, right? So I ran into books like Emotional Intelligence. I ran into, meditation books. I ran into all these things, but I didn't know how they all correlated. I didn't know how they all connected. And
You're
then
just
I was
reading books.
just reading books as I felt led, different books. I was hearing an interview of Chad Veach, a leadership podcast that he has. And in it, he was interviewing Mike Todd. So they were talking with one another, and they were sharing their numbers. And I think one of them was a 7, the other one was a 3. And I was like, this sounds like really interesting. I got to check this out. So I go on the Enneagram, boom, I take the free one, right? Because I'm cheap, I don't want to spend. So I took the free one first.
Yeah. No. Yeah. No.
Yeah, I took the free one first, but then I was like, no way. I got to find out more.
Yeah.
So then I paid for it, and I was like, you got to be kidding me. Because in a 10-minute read of my tests on Enneagram, I believe it's Enneagram Institute, where they have the Truity test.
Truity, yeah.
So in a 10-minute read, I was able to see what God was trying to show me since 2016. Because this journey began for us in 2020. But it was so spot on, and I'm reading it, and I was like, that is you. Is that something I have to worry about? And then the 7, we don't like being cornered.
No.
So I'm hearing this, I'm like, nah.
You heard
He's
how
like, no.
I was like, no.
Yeah, but it was so convicting that I was like, I'm not gonna read anything else unless you take it. So we can share the pain. So when she took it, like, she started tearing up. And I was like,
Reading about your type?
Reading about her
mine.
own.
About your type.
So when that happened, I was like, oh, we just ran into something legit. We just ran into something. So that's when we really started digging. And that's what has led us to this point. And for me, it's been difficult because for 7s to accept truths.
It's kind of like reading a criticism about yourself. And for 7,
and now everybody else knows.
We don't like it. We don't like it.
What? Get out of here with that. The biggest thing for me was the FOMO part. Because I have had plenty of people close to me, not close to me, just be like, whether joking around or serious, man, you have FOMO, don't you? You have FOMO. And that seemed to be the thing that I'm always like, man, that's weak. I don't have FOMO. No, I don't. No, I don't. Bam. I think it was like number 3 or 4. You have FOMO.
Wow.
And it was just like accepting that.
So I'm guessing that this episode is like cringeworthy for you guys, since I'm going to be nitpicking, talking about uncomfortable stuff.
Do it. Rip the Band-Aid off.
Let's get it over with.
I'm going to tell you my first impression of a 7. Not so much like you particularly.
It's okay, baby. It's okay. We're married. We're good. So
but like when you read, the report to me, and I remember I was washing dishes, and I'm just like staring at the dishes like, oh my God, like what am I gonna do? This is like
scary.
Yeah, because one of the major key points is like 7s get bored easily, and I'm like, oh, can I be like satisfying enough where I'm not like boring anymore. And I was like, oh man, that's a lot of work. I got to come up with like activities. I got to come up with conversations. I got to come up with all this stuff to make, keep him entertained.
And then she's a 1. So that inner critic took that little thing and ran with it.
Guys. I'm a type 1, but it works. It works.
Anxiety went through the
Yeah,
roof.
it was
through the roof.
Yeah, no.
And it is scary. I mean, even for myself, when I read bored, it almost felt like all the words, you know how when you take the portrait pictures with the iPhone that it could blur out the background?
Right.
When I was reading the Enneagram report, everything else blurred out for me, but bored stood out.
Right.
Because it's something that I had realized I had been struggling with, but hard. And it led me into immorality. It led me into so many bad decisions that I had. Right. And it's centered on the fact that we have an issue with boredom. 7s have a real issue with boredom.
So what do you like about being a 7?
So I love the positivity aspect. Friends or significant others, anyone, they're coming to you with some negative anything at work, with their friends, whatever. We're really able to quickly find a positive spin to it.
Just reframe that.
Just to reframe it. Hey, can you look at this a little differently? Because the negativity is driving me crazy. Like that's what's going on inside. But like, when you care about the person and you're putting an effort, you'll help them try to find that positive spin. But it's funny when it's when you read about that, I'm like, man, I just thought I liked helping people find the positive side, but I'm really just feeding my like push for like pushing negativity away.
Your core desire to avoid pain, to be happy. Yeah.
Right.
And what do you like about being a 7?
I would say it falls along the line of the same thing, in being a minister and being a servant of God and things like that. Like it feels good to be able to walk into a room and like for a while, unfortunately, I use that in the negative sense, but we'll probably talk about that further along in the interview. But when you come into the room, you bring presence into the room. Like you bring that happiness and that joy and that energy that it just flows with a 7. Energy just flows with a 7. It oozes out of us and we don't even know it sometimes.
Right.
So I love that aspect that the room doesn't determine me. I determine the room.
Right.
Hey.
A lot of times.
So much so, like at work sometimes it's like, oh, let's get Melvin to roll this out. Just because of that, like unspoken, there's just this energy, and I think that definitely comes with being a 7.
Yeah. I'm a type 1, so my growth point is type 7. So in moments where I'm growing, I am more like spontaneous. I'm more like, joyful.
Daring.
It's not so like black and white.
Right.
There's areas where we can have fun and we can. So every time I see him like that, which is his natural self, I'm like, okay, I got to be a little more like just spontaneous. Let's just go out and forget about dinner. Let's go buy something. Like, let's just have a spontaneous date night. Let's try to do something fun.
I love that. Too.
So it's like it alleviates also
it takes the guessing out of it.
Yeah, and it kind of alleviates my inner critic a little bit where everything has to be, no, we have to have dinner because it's Monday. And I have to cook dinner because it's Tuesday, and I have to, do this because it's Wednesday.
Yeah, and now you lost me. All right, it's boring. And there's too much structure.
Exactly,
to this right now.
Exactly. So it allows me to, it reminds me to be a little less, because I feed off of schedules and structures, and like Mondays we do this, Tuesday. But moving on, what do you dislike about being a 7?
So going back to the part where it was kind of scary reading it. Yes, we like having fun, spontaneous stuff like that. It's scary when you're reading about the commitment part.
That's good.
I don't want to be known as somebody who can't commit, to someone, to something, who can't follow through, because we get so distracted very quickly.
Ready to move on.
At work, this happens a lot. I can be working on something and then I'll get another idea or notice something else.
Wow.
And put this aside and start working on that. I don't like that. We have trouble executing, on something we started, or, I'm not going to say trouble with commitment, but just how that's something we have to be aware of, that we have to fight, being committed,
That's
good.
so good. I think Jay Shetty calls it the monkey brain.
The monkey
monkey
brain.
mind.
Where you're jumping the
Yeah.
monkey mind, where you're jumping from one idea to the next, from one thing to the next. I battle that too, the scatterbrain, being
Yep.
scatterbrained and wanting more, right? Because the deadly sin of a seven is gluttony. So we want more experiences, more thoughts, more knowledge, more experiences, more.
Just
And
more.
that's where my issue, I think that what I dislike about myself, especially in the past, thank God, God has been working on me, and I'm gravitating towards my 5. So I'm able to be happy with less. But for me, it's been that boredom, man. That battling the boredom, battling the battling being able to embrace stillness, right? Like, be still and know that I am God. Like, the guys put a question, I think it was Ant. He was like, what's your least favorite verse in all scripture? And I was like, be still and know that I am God. Like, that's easy for me, right? Because that's hard for me. It's hard for me to not want to help. It's hard for me to not want to move things. It's hard for me to wait on God. It's hard for me to do all that because of the FOMO, because of the activity, because of the boredom, because of the discipline. Like, discipline is, I don't like discipline.
Right.
You know, I just want to have fun. I want to grow by mistake. Like, I want to grow because it was fun growing. Like, I ain't noticed I was growing.
Real.
You know what I mean? So that's what I dislike, the boredom, the difficulty dealing and struggling, because for me it's a real struggle.
Yeah.
Like, I would say it's almost a daily struggle.
Yeah.
In different aspects, different areas with boredom, because you'll be able to conquer one area and then another one pops up. Yeah. You conquer, another one pops up. It's a constant thing.
Are you more aware of that now?
Yes.
Like, is there anything that you do specifically to just kind of like rear yourself back? And even you too, with commitment, like, how do you stay committed to that task? Or how do you feel like, I got to finish this instead of being bored? Or
I mean, for me, I think I've gotten better at reminding myself that there's a reward for it, that there's a reward for discipline. There's a reward for commitment. There's a reward for being still. Yeah. And I mean, it does take work, but I'll remind myself, and I'll create these mental pictures that I could go back to, these snapshots, if you will, that I can go back to remind myself, man, when I waited that time, this was the result. When I disciplined myself that time, this was the result. When I battled the boredom and was able to push through it, my marriage was the result. When I battled boredom and was able to push through it, Sunday BYOB was the result. When I battled and pushed through it, new relationships were the result. Right. So I think that would be the thing.
I like what you say about the reward, because in James chapter 1, verse 2-4, I like how the Passion Translation says, "My fellow believers, when it seems as though you are facing nothing but difficulties, see it as an invaluable opportunity to experience the greatest joy that you can. For you know that when your faith is tested, it stirs up in you the power of endurance. And then as your endurance grows even stronger, it will release perfection into every part of your being until there is nothing missing and nothing lacking." Like, I love how you talk about that reward. Like, after the hard work, after the commitment to that task, there's going to be, a reward. And that's really good. Biblical,
Yeah, and I
That's
love
really
how that's the way we keep ourselves grounded, as sevens, so that we can commit, so that we can take criticism, we can learn from those things, right? I think about so just backtrack. I grew up in church, a different church than the one I met Marquez in, but I feel like there was a time in my life that there wasn't trauma and there wasn't just something conflicting, right, that I was going through, where I felt like I kept myself grounded the more I was involved with, whether it's the right people or church more, ministry, things like that, without even knowing. I didn't know anything about Enneagram, sevens, things like that, but I do remember thinking in this kind of sense, like, hey, I'm gonna do this because I know there's gonna be a reward for, I don't know, not going out with this group of people tonight. I know I'll feel better about it Monday if I don't do that. So I do remember thinking in that sense.
That's good.
I had no idea it was linked to
It's crazy, right?
just like the
insane.
types and like things like that.
And I think that's a common misconception of sevens, the whole like fear of commitment, because I've seen you committed to this marriage. I've seen you committed to, Sunday BYOB. I've seen you committed to your family. So it's like, I don't know if you're fearful of the commitment. I just think for like sevens, it's, I'm committed to this until something more fun comes along. Which is, I think that's where like, if you
get in trouble. Yeah,
if you dig a little deeper, I think that's where the commitment, because like I've never seen you more committed to something like more than this marriage. Like you make me want to be a better wife, a better spouse. Oof. So I think it's just the commitment of, the one thing until something else comes along.
That's good. I mean, that again is something that we would probably miss.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's why I think these conversations and for our audience, having these sort of conversations and getting in groups like your book club that you're beginning with, circled around the Enneagram. It's just key, man. It's key, like having these conversations with you, with Phil, with Chanti, with Chico, with Nicole, with Rafi. Like the circle's growing. The Enneagram per se circle is growing because people see the benefits of it. And, for a 7, that's fun. That's fun. Yeah. But I already see it, bro. I already see when it becomes something solid, I'm like, but there's got to be more. Like, what else?
What's more fun?
Yeah, what's more fun? And that's the battle that I feel we have,
Yeah. And I love also, I just find it fascinating, the whole FOMO part. Going back to your FOMO.
Yeah, hey.
It's a real thing.
FOMO is actually like a real word now. It's in the Oxford Dictionary.
Wow.
It made it in there.
Lying,
No,
really?
it's a FOMO. Like they have like phonetically how it's pronounced. FOMO.
Wow.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you what FOMO means. It's defined as anxiety that an exciting or interesting event may currently be happening elsewhere, often aroused by posts seen on a social media website. FOMO is anxiety.
That's crazy. Social media definitely heightens
FOMO is anxiety. But
to the max.
I'm more of a JOMO type. You know what JOMO is?
Joy of missing
The
out.
joy of
I have seen that before.
That's real cool.
That's me. I remember we had this conversation one time. I was like, you ever heard of JOMO? That's me. I'm JOMO.
Yeah.
Like I'm by myself. I just want to like enjoy me, self-care, my mask.
Yeah. I don't want to go out.
No. I want to enjoy like wine at home and watch Big Bang Theory.
You know what's weird for me? That is kind of a confession that you guys are gonna hear. I don't think my FOMO has surfaced in the sense of partying or clubs or what is this person doing that. It's come in the way of ministry. I've had a ministerial FOMO where I see what this church is doing, what this pastor is doing, what this leader is doing, and I miss the invitations. I missed the being able to serve in different places. I missed building leaders the way that I used to. I miss those things. And I think that's been more where my FOMO lies. Yeah. And it's been a battle for me. Like I shared it with, different people that I'm close to. My wife hears it all the time because it comes out as critical. Like I'll begin criticizing something that they do or someone that they invited. Oh, they invite this guy, but not me. But this guy's doing worse than me, and they don't even know it. And blah blah blah. Like
mine goes crazy.
Yeah,
and it's
but
funny
that's
because,
where when I'm in an unhealthy place, I draw towards the negative characteristics of a 1, which means I become critical, I become judgmental, I become all these
You
nasty
see everything
things.
black and white.
Yes.
Okay, if I'm not this, then that's what it is.
So I know it's an unhealthy thing that I'm doing. So in recent weeks, I've drawn back from that.
Right.
I've drawn back from that because I know it's an unhealthy aspect of my FOMO.
Yeah, I think it ties into something you mentioned earlier about and you too, Anna, just what is the newest thing right now? Me and side note, I lived in Louisville, Kentucky for the last 2 years. No, the last year I've been back home, but the 2 years before that, Louisville, Kentucky.
Okay, I'm a Rutgers Scarlet Knight, so
Seton Hall. That's where you graduated from?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Y'all dislike each other
I should
bad.
have brought.
And
I
an
should have
Eagles
brought.
fan.
Yeah, no.
Your Rutgers stuff.
I should have came decked out in the Scarlet
You
Knight.
should have get decked out. Good basketball team this year, though. Nice job to you guys.
not
But you know, born and raised in New Jersey, and then just 2 years right in Louisville, Kentucky. So, you know, before again being involved in church here and everything as I was growing up, my FOMO was directly linked to ministry. Okay, everyone else is serving here, so that's exciting. I want to do it too. Here we go, you know, and I get involved in that. When I was in Louisville, you know, I just chose not to church ministry, none of that. So now my FOMO got linked to something else.
Wow.
You know, the partying, the going out with people and things like that. So anytime I would just be home,
it redirected itself, basically.
Exactly, because now that was the exciting thing there, because hey, I chose not to get involved with God, church, like none of that stuff over there, right? So I definitely, again, being more in tune with myself in the last year and thinking about that FOMO aspect, I saw how it shifted from one place to another, and that's just something, you know, to be aware of, you know. And the way I train my mind now, okay, what do I have FOMO of? People going out partying. Okay, but what's the reward in that? What's the reward in just it's either hanging with a different crowd or just staying home? Okay, like I'm gonna do this. This will be more enriching to me if I stay home or if I go to Phil's house or something like that instead.
So it's FOMO versus JOMO. Sometimes
FOMO versus JOMO.
The battle of the ages, or of the seven.
Well, they actually did a study on JOMO, and it was reported that people who intentionally took the time out from social activities enjoyed more time alone. They were financially more stable, and they prioritized their mental health and were better able to pursue their interests and hobbies.
Wow. Sounds like a 5. Which is our
Shout
growth
out to the
point.
fives.
That's our growth point,
Right.
which is crazy, because the opposite of the things that you were just sharing is the definition that Anna just gave us. That's
So how do you guys practice JOMO?
I mean, I've gotten better at it.
Or is it like a
chilling.
real, like you just don't want to do it?
So I'm a big movie buff too.
Okay.
I love movies.
Did you see Justice League, the new one?
I did.
Or is it
was
Marvel
good. I liked
versus?
it.
All 4 hours. It was good.
Are you
It
Marvel
was
or
good.
DC?
No, I like Marvel, like the movies,
All right.
the animated stuff. I like DC, but
Right.
no, the Justice League movie was good.
Yeah,
but,
it was dope.
I'm a big movie buff, right? So if I notice myself getting this FOMO to like an unhealthy environment, let me find a new movie
Okay.
for me to
That's
watch.
good.
So that's like
Nice.
a practical way. Over the last year, I've been, keeping myself grounded.
I feel like the underlying subject of all the types is self-care. Like that's something that comes up in every single type. How do we practice self-care for us? So is JOMO like a self-care type thing?
It's become a thing for me, right? Like for many years, again, ministry was my fun. So I kept myself preoccupied with ministry. And I think it was a God thing, man. It was a God thing, some of the things that I had to go through to get me to a place where it was about him and me, him and me, him and me. And what I've done now is, I think I've stuck with studying the Enneagram for about a good year solid. Which that's not something that happened with me. I would study for 3 months and I jump to the next subject, jump to the next subject, jump to the next subject, because of my gluttony was for knowledge. My main gluttony, I just wanted to know a lot about a lot of things. So I get joy out of that. I know it's nerdy.
I love nerdy.
But I get joy out of being able to have a deep thought as opposed to many shallow thoughts.
Right.
And, in order to get to that place, you have to calm down. We have to find, and it's like you said, you got to find your thing.
Right.
Right. And I love movies. But not as much as I love books.
Right.
So I'll get in a good book, man. And
You'll go
I forget, bro.
Yeah,
I
you'll
forget
go
about
in.
what's going on. And that's what I love about my wife. Like we'll read together. She'll be reading her book.
That's
I'll be
awesome.
reading my book.
That's awesome.
And that's like
partying for us. You know what I mean?
That's
Without
awesome.
all the trouble, you know,
Yeah.
without all the trouble, without the hangover the next day, without you know, a lot of the craziness.
Yeah.
But you know, that has helped me. That has helped me, and I think that's a lot of my joy has come from that.
Yeah. So I know we've talked about wings before. And guys, if you haven't heard about Enneagram wings, go on to the previous episode about the summary of the Enneagram. You'll hear it there. But the wings for a type 7 is a wing 6 and a wing 8. Which wing do you guys associate with the most?
The 6 is the loyalist, the 8 is the boss.
Yeah, probably the wing 8, I would say. You know, just because I feel like I've always been in some sort of leadership position. So just from you saying the definitions,
The type 8
instantly
wing
went towards,
tends to be more exuberant, more aggressive, more competitive, easily bored.
yeah, that's check.
A wing 6 tends to be more loyal, responsible, settled, more accepting of others, etc.
I definitely feel like I've had my moments, I think, where I'm 8-ish. But I think in this season of my life, it's definitely been more 6-ish.
Okay.
7 wing 6. It's a great
And
question.
7 wing 8.
So that's
Nice.
dope.
Wing 8.
And the wings just kind of round out the personality. You don't really
Yeah,
become.
do you think there could be elements of both?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like for
Sometimes,
me,
'cause some of the
I'm a
stuff you
type
just
1.
described with
Like
the
I'm a type
6.
1, but like wing 2 and wing 9. Like
Okay.
I'm like I feel like I'm equally both. Like it's
Got it.
just Monday I'm a 2, Tuesday I'm a 9. I'm just
Yeah.
equally both. Like it's
Based on the season, I think
Yeah.
I'm
Right,
that way
that's
too.
the thing. Based on the season, because I'm like,
Yeah.
I've seen myself definitely go towards 8. But when you started describing a 6, I'm
like
like,
I could be there too.
I'm like, man, I think that's where I'm at right now. To
Yeah,
be
yeah.
honest, like, you know,
I think it's and I think that it's good that you bring the wings up because it helps us. Like it helps us to not be as exuberant, as out there, as rah.
Right.
You know, when you draw from these two, it helps to level you out, right? Like
Right.
if you think about a wing, it helps to get you to a place where you're soaring the way with direction instead of just soaring
aimlessly.
because you're aimlessly. That's good.
Yeah, I love wings. I do because you know what? It helps the Enneagram not be so, you know, like all other
like a rule book.
Yeah, like all other
Yeah.
personality types. It's just like very stoic. There's nothing there. This has fluidity. Like it moves. I could be a wing 9. I could be a wing 2. You could be a wing 6, you could be an 8, and vice versa. Like it just moves around. You're not
Right.
just stuck to one specific. Look at me being a type 7.
that.
Hey.
Yeah.
And it's good. I mean, the whole Enneagram, I think, for me has been such a blessing because it's not as black and white as the
Right.
Myers-Briggs. Like the Myers-Briggs doesn't give a lot of room for growth and
Right.
room for adventure and room for, you know, that's why like I read the Myers-Briggs and I was like, boring.
Yeah.
Give me some more fun.
Speaking of adventure, how has this journey, this walk with God been a type 7 adventure?
Yeah. So it kind of, you know, for me, it just, again, grew up in church, went away from it, you know, and then it had to, for me, unfortunately, it had to take something very traumatic and heavy to kind of wake you up, like that Saul falling from his horse moment. Like it had to take something like that.
Yeah.
Right. Unfortunately, you know, for me to just kind of get back, reset, not make excuses, right? Not blame other people, other things, right? Just what you were talking about, just looking at your inner self.
Wow.
And when I'm able to wrap my mind around that concept, there's a lot I need to learn about myself as a 7 that's exciting.
Yeah,
Because
that's
I'm
so
like,
good.
wow, there's so much I didn't
Yeah.
know about myself, you know, things that I can definitely embrace, the spontaneity, the positivity, things I need to be disciplined about and control, commitment, you know, things like that. That part as a 7, like that's exciting. And now if I read something about being a 7, I kind of want to see where in the Bible. I'm interested.
Yeah.
It's a journey. I kind of want to see where that correlates.
You kind of get like FOMO of yourself.
Yeah, of myself.
Yeah.
You know, I'll hit up Phil.
FOMOing
I'm like,
Melvin.
Phil, like, here's a scenario. Where in the Bible do you see this happen?
Right.
And, you know, he'll help me out with that, like that. So that, as a 7, that part's been exciting.
Nice.
Finding out about
That's
yourself.
good. For me, it's just been exciting to kind of see the resurrection or the transformation of me. I really think the 7 has given me direction. It's been hurtful, man. Like I wouldn't say exciting would be the word just yet. Because it's so revealing. It's so revealing. And it makes you dig, and it makes part of it makes you angry. Like part of it made me angry. Like, yo, like I wish I would have known this like 10 years ago.
Right.
You know, a lot of the people
So
that I
real.
hurt, like
So
when
real.
I'm reading the Enneagram and I'm like, fear of missing out, always seeking fun. Like I remember hurting people and telling them, but I told you it was just fun. Like, yo,
Yeah,
like
man.
being a minister, being a pastor, being a this, being a that, speaking in churches and you know, 7s are good at compartmentalizing relationships. Like these are just friends. This
Yeah.
is church. This is God. This is not God. And we're good at separating them. You know what I mean? That a 7 is good at that.
Right.
And I remember being great at it, but it was to my demise. It was to my destruction. So for me, the exciting part is seeing what the second half of my life is going to look like. Like that's exciting for
It
me.
is.
Like that's exciting for me. I feel like I'm thriving now.
Right. Same.
And if
You're
you
peaking.
look at
You're peaking.
It ain't gonna get better.
You're on your way up.
hey,
No, I love what you said. What you said about being angry, about not
knowing it before.
know. For
Yeah.
me, I'll because Enneagrams came up in a conversation before I even moved to Louisville. I remember
Wow, so
taking
it
this
was a
test
while ago.
before,
Really?
but it was like something I was just like, all right,
The
cool.
monkey mind
That's
is-
my type. All right, cool.
Next
I don't
branch.
know. Yeah. Anyway, it was kind of like that. So I got angry at, man, why didn't I take that more serious before?
Yeah.
Imagine I make this move with this knowledge that I have now. The anger part, as soon as you said it, I was just like, dude, reading this, like this work, this inner work, been doing it last year, that part is frustrating. Why didn't I choose to do this?
Yeah.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Yes.
So that's real.
So just to wrap it up, if there's anything that you could tell a type 7 or someone who knows a type 7, something that you could tell them in the camera and the audience, what would you tell them?
I'll go first, and then,
Go
you
ahead.
can share something. But for me, I would tell you guys to give yourself some compassion, to not be so hard on yourself when you begin to realize some of the mistakes you've been missing due to this. Just yesterday, I was reading some Enneagram stuff, and literally I felt God tell me, remember, go search the scriptures. And I read, and he took me back to Psalm 139, where in the Passion Translation it says, God, I invite your searching gaze into my heart. Examine me through and through. Find out everything that may be hidden within me. Put me to the test and sift through my anxious thoughts. See if there is any path of pain I'm walking on, and lead me back to your glorious everlasting way, the path that brings me back to you. Wow. And he led me to this, and then I'm like, oh my God, the first book that I read on the Enneagram, the title of it is The Path Back to You.
Wow.
And the connection was just crazy. And the realization that I had is I've struggled with prayer for years. This verse tells me why I've struggled with prayer. I don't want to pray because I know when I pray, the searching begins. And I know when the searching begins, the ugliness is found. When the ugliness is found, the ugliness has to be dealt with. So for the 7 out there, there's going to be different moments. Some of them will be glorious. Some of them will be ugly. Some of them will be happy. Some of them will be full of tears. But the end result is a life that'll see you thriving, a life that'll see you happy, a life that'll see you, you know what, not a life that'll see you happy, but a life that'll see you joyful. Because happiness depends upon what's going on around you, but joy is a disposition of the heart. And you know, this digging and this inner work will take you to that place of joy.
Amen.
I love that. It's a
That's
good
good.
segue. You know, for the sevens out there, I've used this analogy before. It's like when you're driving, there's a pothole in front of you. Especially if we're driving at night, it seems like anytime we hit the pothole, then we cringe because we didn't see it. We didn't see that it was there, but the damage is already done now. Hey, like embrace the positive stuff, you know, of a seven. You know,
That's
everything you heard here today, the stuff that you aligned with in a positive way, embrace that stuff. And now the stuff that scared you, hey, look at it like you can now see the pothole so you can avoid it.
That's good.
Yes.
You know, don't surrender to it. You know, don't think, I'll just never be able to commit. No, don't. If commitment scares you, you know, if that part really unmotivates you from being a seven, then don't give into it. See it as a pothole. Now you can avoid it. Now when you have these tendencies, you know where these tendencies are coming from. And now you can avoid it. You can find your way to keep yourself grounded. You can find
That's
your
good.
way to think about the reward after the fact. No, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna decide to do this. I'm gonna follow through with this project. I'm gonna follow through with this commitment because I know the reward's greater there. So look at it. Look at anything that scared you about this episode. Look at it like a pothole that you can now avoid instead of just giving into it.
So good.
That's so good. Guys, thank you so much for allowing me to pick your brain a little bit. Thank you for allowing me to host, babe.
Thank you for allowing me to be a guest, babe.
Again, you guys, if you enjoyed this episode, there are more episodes on the Enneagram. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. You can find us on Instagram, Sunday BYOB. And we're done.
That's it.
We'll be out.
Woo! That was so good.